Edmonton Oilers forward Connor McDavid and Vancouver Canucks defenseman Tyler Myers both got 3-game suspensions by the Department of Player Safety on Monday because of their game over the weekend in Vancouver that led to a furious finish. Alongside Craig Ludwig, I'm Owen Newkirk. Let's talk about it. Connor McDavid was getting mauled by Connor Garland as Edmonton was trying to score a late goal, right? With the empty net.
Getting mauled.
He was getting
Garland is what, 5'2"? He's like Sam size.
That's true.
I don't know if he's mauling.
Okay, so he's
grappling with him.
He was being perturbed, obstructed, bothered in some way.
He was going to make sure that McDavid wasn't going to score.
There's 2 issues on this. One is there are multiple penalties from Garland, and the referees didn't call it. Then, obviously, the suspension is McDavid cross-checks after he separates from Garland, which takes a while. He cross-checks Garland in the side of the head. That is worth every bit of the 3-game suspension, right? There's really no bones of contention about it.
None whatsoever.
The only thing I think that people might be talking about is you can kind of understand the reaction because he's frustrated of trying to separate and get away from Garland. Garland's not letting him do it. And so he just loses it and loses his cool in the moment. I don't think there's ever, in my opinion, Luds, a justification for using your stick to attack an opponent in the head, period. Right. End of story. That's why he got suspended. But I can at least see why he reacted the way he did, even though you shouldn't cross-check somebody in the head.
There's cause and effect.
Yes.
Yes, agreed. But there's another play that supersedes everything.
What's that?
Myers.
Oh, yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And
that's away from the play.
What does West do at the end of it? He gives everybody on the ice 2s, right?
Well, they just try to send everybody off.
He's getting everybody out of here because
we
want to stop the show. I agree with you. Like, he should have had something, but at some point, that other play kind of just blows what Garland did.
So Tyler Myers goes after Evan Bouchard up against the boards as Bouchard was trying to take a shot with only a couple of seconds left. After McDavid is separated, there's a big scrum going on, and you see Myers spin and slash him after he tries to hit him. It didn't look like Bouchard tried to provoke anything. There's probably some conversation going on.
That's where I was going. We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And when Bouchard starts skating at Myers, and all of a sudden Myers comes up and gives it to him.
Right in the jaw, mouth, nose area.
And a lot of times that is because something was said. And I don't know, I couldn't see anything, so I have no idea. And I don't know if there's ever been any kind of history with those two, which you don't typically expect 2 defensemen to be running into much each other. But they're both guys that like getting up the ice, right? So there are times they could cross paths in front of the net with the other. I just think that because Myers was actually kind of backing off a little bit and just kind of standing there. And then as Bouchard's coming at him, and then it's just such a quick reaction. And it was from a bit of a distance, so I just wondered if there was something said to him that made him react that way.
So,
which again doesn't excuse the cross check to the face.
That's where I'm getting at. If either one of these players, Myers or McDavid, had simply released their stick with one hand and even thrown a punch with the glove on,
there wouldn't have been suspended.
There's no suspensions. There's there may be some penalties, and the game figures out. And that's the big thing here is if you use frankly, and I know you as in your career used the cross check a lot, whether it was to push a guy or to set a tone or get revenge or whatever. I don't know why any cross checks are considered legal, right? You're literally extending your arms and hitting somebody with your stick. That seems like a very illegal act. But there is a degree with how they officiate it where they let it go, not to the head.
Well, I think over the years we've seen that any kind of head contact, any kind, is going to be gone. And both of these were in plain sight. I mean, it's like everybody always has their eyes on Connor McDavid, regardless. And when Garland is wrestling him and doing what, and again, what was there, 15, 20 seconds left. And he even said it. He goes, I'm not going to let that kid get up and score.
That's an interesting thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Do you think that was a wise, savvy play by Garland in the sense that even if he took a penalty, he's just saying, I am going to do what I can to try to tackle McDavid. He is not going to be able to score this goal and beat us.
And I think there was a bit of a wrestling match.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
So I think in Garland's mind, if he continues to stay with him, they're both going off together. Because again, any time that you can take one of the best players in the world off the ice, everybody's going to consider it a good penalty. They're coincidentals. You go off the ice. So I think that's what Garland's thinking was in that whole thing. Obviously, he never thought, because I don't know if we've ever seen McDavid react like that. I don't think he ever expected to get a two-hander across the head. So, and that's why you continue to do that. And he's a shorter player, and he's kind of looking at him, and so I don't think he expected that. And I think that, again, I just think that both of these guys, it worked out to where there were two incidents that were identical, and you get three, and everybody else gets two, and let's go away. And nobody's going to complain about they're not going to complain about the suspensions because they're deserved, brother, whoever took them. And the other ones we don't want anything else to happen here in the rest of this little bit of the game.
Yeah. The big complaint I've heard from people from Edmonton about the whole thing is about the uncalled Garland mugging, whatever you want to call it. I heard a really interesting comment. Somebody brought up your old teammate Chris Chelios, who says every now and then you have to remind people.
Yeah, let them know I can still do this.
And that, I'm not condoning what Myers did. I'm not condoning what McDavid did. But is that does that come to play?
I would have to think. How many has Connor played now? 10 years? No, 9 years?
Something like that.
Don't you think he's a little fed up after all these years of taking it and taking it and taking it? And you can argue, is it right or wrong? But I think that at some point he has to be able to stand up for himself. I think maybe in his own mind now and again, nobody's going to think he's going to be this vicious player moving forward. But he is capable of losing it, that he's always kept his cool before. And he's pretty much kept his mouth shut about everything. He fights through things. And it reminds me a little bit of Mario Lemieux. We were able to play a different, style of game then, but you could grab on and you could hitch a ride and you could hold people. But he didn't complain about it. He fought through it. He really did. He didn't complain on it until later on. And it got to a point where nothing was ever happening.
Well, your old teammate in Dallas, Mike Modano, said, imagine what it would be like if you didn't have to fight through that all the time.
Yeah, well, and imagine the numbers those guys could have had. That's what they're talking about all the time. They're always thinking, well, if we didn't have to play through this kind of play.
What do you think Pavel Bure would have looked like without having that kind of obstruction all the time with his speed?
The flash. Of course. He'd have the jersey going just like Modano did. But
you're right. It's 10 years this is his 10th season for McDavid.
Yeah.
And remember, there was that narrative a few years ago of he's not getting the calls in the playoffs. He's not drawing enough. He should be drawing more because of how dangerous he is, and they're not doing enough. And we should probably do a whole segment on our show, and we will. Is the NHL protecting its superstars enough?
Compared to what they used to, yes.
But is it enough? I guess that's for another day. Thanks for watching here on DLLS.